And so you would have met a number of entrepreneurs on Dragon's Den then?
So I would have been casting on that show, and I didn't really fancy sitting in an interview room asking someone to get naked in front of me to judge whether I thought they'd be good enough to come on the show.
Right.
Walked in and he was literally stood there in his underpants.
So if there's corporate businesses here, it doesn't have to be just corporate though, does it? It could be anyone. Be the other private people, it could be businesses who could use the skills here.
Yeah, absolutely. Very welcoming company. Paul's been great as a boss. As I said before, I came from a background of 12 years working in TV. I started off I've studied film and TV at uni, graduated, worked at the BBC in news for years. I've lived and breathed TV my whole life. Even as a kid, I was on extras. I did extra work for dramas, hundreds of dramas, you name it out. I've probably been on it in the background somewhere, walking, or, being in a background of a funeral, all sorts of different scenes. Yeah. I even played a ghost once.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was that on? Can you remember?
It was called The Stepfather. It was a 3-part ITV drama, I think. I was on Life on Mars, playing a game in the 70s. Can you remember Life on Mars?
Yeah.
It's a great series.
Yeah.
And they're all resurfacing on Netflix at the minute, so that's hilarious. Fat Friends has just been put on, and there's me, my mum and my sister on that from 2004, which I can't believe.
Right, we need to go and find these.
Yeah.
Clips.
I know.
On YouTube. Straight on.
No, they're on Netflix. On Netflix, probably on YouTube there's some. Shameless, I'm on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So was the dream, so if we go backwards.
Yeah.
Was the dream to be an entertainer rather than in the back office, as it were?
So like an actress, you mean,
Yeah.
instead of behind the camera? Not really. I used to go to drama just in a pub function room in Barnsley, which is where I'm from, as a kid, and do these drama sessions, but they actually it was run by an agent that obviously got people on TV. So I thought, yeah, I love theatre, I love watching TV, and I admire actors. But it wasn't till I had to do like improvisation stuff, I just realised this isn't for me. I'm not an actor. I did go to auditions as well. My mum used to drive us to Manchester across the Pennines with a map. There was no sat-nav then. And get lost, be stressed, and then I'd be at these auditions just like, I'm not actually that confident doing this, but I'm fascinated by behind the cameras, how that works, and the crew. So it went from there really. So then when I had an option to study media at college and then go on to study film and TV, I did all that. But I don't think I needed a degree to get to where I am. I could have probably tried to it's networking.
Yeah.
It comes back down to networking, basically. So I say that I probably didn't need a degree. It was definitely worth doing because that actually did lead me on to landing a job at the BBC, really.
Yeah.
I heard about some free experience, doing some experience at an event in Leeds run by the BBC. So that was through uni, and I wouldn't have got that, so you have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But it's very practical, and it's about who you know, unfortunately. They say, is it though? Some people will hopefully give people a chance, but generally you would get an in through talking to people or saying, oh, I know this person, can I come for a work experience day,
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about experience as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember not so long ago, actually, say I've got 20 years of corporate experience, but I haven't got a degree. You don't even get through the door. But 20 years of experience is better than having a degree. And also when you do a degree, it might not necessarily be what you end up doing as a career. I think what it kind of demonstrates in a way, the great thing about degrees are it demonstrates the fact that you've been able to major in something and apply yourself in order to be able to get a result from it, and from there then you find out what your competencies are. So I'm not sure that you understand your competencies perhaps very early on. I think they probably evolve into your mid-20s, I would have thought.
Yeah, That is true. It sets you up on the right path, really. And I remember people saying, TV and film degree, is that even a thing? Like, what do you do? Just make films all day?
Yeah.
Watch films? No. We still had to write a 10,000 word dissertation. It was quite hard. I wouldn't be able to do it now, go back and study. But yeah, it was from there, really, just got my foot in the door and was given a chance by someone working at BBC News in Leeds. So I used to operate all the cameras and sort of do floor managing for Look North.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's what I did for 2 years before moving into sort of more unscripted TV, they call it.
Right.
So your, shows like Dragon's Den, The Voice, all those shows.
Which one did you enjoy the most?
I think it's actually it's finished now, but I think I enjoyed the most. Oh, there's some great ones. Question of Sport. A Question of Sport, it was great. I'm actually not a sporty person and I had no knowledge about any kind of sport or sports person, unfortunately, before getting the job. But they wanted someone who could book sports people, speak to agents, create the graphics on screen that go onto the big games, come up with generating new game ideas.
Yeah.
Really muck in. And I used to go out and film all the mystery guests.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one was really fun. It was a great team. Really good crack on there. They used to on a Friday playing like a game to end the day, and everyone would be in hysterics in the office.
Yeah.
And that was pre-COVID, so we were.
It always seemed good fun.
Yeah.
When you watch it as a TV person watching it, it's got they actually look like they're having a good time.
Yeah, they did. Matt and Phil were ace. Me and my friend actually used to have to do all the run-throughs as Matt and Phil. I used to be Phil Tufnell. So, to make sure they'd all run right and the graphics are all done properly, we'd always run through before it'd be filmed as live, and we'd have the live audience in. So I'd be there doing all the end game where they have the words come up on the screen. They have to sort of act them out and the other team guesses. Yeah. Like charades, isn't it? Honestly, some of them had come up, I wouldn't have a clue what they were, because it could be someone's sports star's name and I'd just be, I don't even know what, just running around like an absolute idiot, trying to convince that I knew what I was doing, but it was just funny.
Yeah.
And I got to go to Paris to film Martina Navratilova as well, which was a highlight. She's a legend. So that was really fun.
So there's a lot of shows you've done where you've applied your skill. Over what period of time was that?
I'd say it was from about 2014 actually, till about 2022. So about, what's that, 10 years?
Yeah, roughly.
About.
Yeah, roughly, end to end. And so when you work on these shows, I guess it meant that you were on location. Was it in London or was it mainly Manchester?
They were all actually based in Media City, but I did used to go down to London to do auditions for casting people, or after post-COVID, it would be a London company that I worked for, such as Love Productions. That was my last TV job, was The Great Pottery Throwdown, which is aired on Channel 4. They're based in London, but actually it was really good. They hired people from all over the UK and we just cast it remotely.
Right.
And then they would do auditions where they'd all build pottery in London. So yeah, there'd be an element of travel, but generally a lot of my shows, I was quite fortunate, were from Media City. I worked on a lot of this big studio shows.
Right.
So that was really good.
Personalities wise, mixture, different people motivated by different things. Some people demand stuff. So you've got creatives versus people who need to be structured.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, I think everyone just mucks in, I guess. There's two arms to TV production. There's editorial, which is what I was in, so all the casting and the creative side, writing briefs. And then there's the production management side, which is sort of the logistics side, which is very separate.
Yeah.
And it just keeps that cog going. They'll be booking all the crew, the travel, the food, for everybody. But I was just more... I just have a passion for talking to people and meeting people. So I feel like my skill there was applied in casting because I was trying to find the best characters for the shows, you know, really dig deep to find their backstories, whether it, you know, something really interesting and that gets the commissioners to go, yeah, we'll have them on the show.
Yeah.
And it was hard. Sometimes you'd be sat around a sort of a big table with all your, you know, your teammates, and then there'd be the execs, and you'd have a weekly meeting where you'd have to pitch to them why you want your people to get on the show.
Wow.
And we'd have a deadline because the shows are commissioned to a schedule and they need to be made by a certain point and they need to be filmed by a certain point. That means we've got to cast this amount of people for this, you know, at this date. If we don't get those people, there's no show. So that pressure was quite heavy at some, you know, at points.
Yeah. Is budget a big factor?
Budget.
I assume it is.
Yeah, budget is a big factor. I suppose when I work for the BBC, they don't have budget for things like, for example, when I did the mystery guest shoots and filmed at places all over the UK, we didn't have a budget to give them a fee as a thank you for filming in their location. But because, you know, they've got BBC there, they kind of saw it as an opportunity anyway, although we wouldn't be able to give them free advertisement. It's a bit catch-22. But then there's other shows with no budget at all. I worked on an MTV show before with very minimal budget to cast families, so they're putting their kids on TV, and it's kind of like, what's the incentive if I'm not getting paid?
Yeah.
So yeah, there were some jobs that were really tricky to cast for, but you know, if you've got a good team around you, I found that it'd be much more enjoyable and easy, really. But the thing about TV is I'd only be contracted for a certain amount of time, maybe 3 months, 6 months maximum would be a long contract. Sometimes you'd only be in work 8 weeks and then you'd have to find another job. So you're constantly chasing your tail trying to find work. But I got to quite a good position in the sense that at the time the TV industry was thriving, and once you sort of go onto one job, it can lead on to the next through networking, through talent managers, checking in to see if you've got availability, if they've got gaps open up and they know you from you speaking to them. And if you obviously work hard and do a good job, then you're more likely to obviously get hired.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until then I got pregnant, I sort of thought, this isn't going to be forever, this work, because it's not sustainable anymore.
So freelancing, is that the way in which most productions are financed, using freelancers?
Yeah, it is. I would say so, yeah. Freelance. I think probably the same in dramas. Everybody is freelance. It's a different arm to TVs. The scripted, which is all your dramas, and then I was in unscripted. But everybody was generally freelance. I think when I started at Media City in around 2016, I started working on Mastermind there. There was still quite a few BBC staff. So they were obviously on a permanent contract and they'd all been moved up from London. Yeah. Especially when Children's moved up CBBC from London to Media City. They wanted loads of people to move up there for work. So they incentivised that with staff contracts. Mm-hmm. But over the next sort of 6-7 years working there, they were not offering permanent contracts anymore. There wouldn't be an assistant producer or, a researcher with a permanent job. It's unheard of. Right. You're more likely to get a permanent role as a production manager than in my line of work. So we were constantly looking for work, really.
So you go back into a pool set, pretty much?
Essentially, I guess so. There are platforms online like the Talent Manager, which you have a profile on. It's a little bit like LinkedIn, but for TV people. Yeah. So you can put your CV on there and get scouted out like that. Or generally, I would say it's up to you to keep getting in touch with talent managers who work for different companies, different production companies, and keep saying, I'm available next month, have you got anything? You know, you've got to really work to, otherwise you just sort of fade away into the depth.
I think that's interesting because in the corporate space, for example, say you're on LinkedIn, you notice folks say, I've just finished my contract now. Anybody else out there needs somebody, these are my skills, and they'll try and market them that way. But I've often found that the only way really to tap into very quick work next is, again, just leveraging that network all the time. People who I've worked with in the past, do you need anybody? And it's because I contracted myself for probably 15 to 20 years, which meant that I was able to sort of run a business, look after the family, do the corporate contracting. But it was always the network that came up trumps for that. But what I'm imagining, because to the listener and myself, I'm finding it fascinating because I don't understand how TV works at all. And you kind of have this romantic notion that it's really creative people, that you've got steady state set of producers and directors and engineers who all work together. They're all working on these things, and it's really lucrative. But what you don't find is that actually the vast majority isn't lucrative at all. But there is definitely synergy between corporate and TV on that regard, because again, one could contract for 6 months and may never work again for a year, and then you could end up not being in demand, because somebody else is coming down the road. So you have to keep yourself fresh. So just in terms of that, what I imagine in my mind is that there are people graduating from college. They want to be in media or film and TV. They're going through that process. So there's thousands of people coming behind you, in order who can try and fulfill those spaces. But I imagine with the onset of on-demand TV, there isn't enough spaces to fill for the people coming through. Is that right?
It's hard to say with spaces coming through, because I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a change and a shift with hiring for how TV is made, because it's slowing down. There's definitely a big decline in the TV industry in terms of staffing. Freelancers, they're really struggling to get in work at the minute, which I think coincided quite conveniently with me having a child, because I was going to move, transition into sort of corporate video instead of TV anyway. I was forced to do that, I felt, because it was unsustainable for me with working hours, commuting time, childcare, having to work away and being a mum. I would have had to find other work, but it kind of worked out anyway, because there is a big decline in work for freelancers in that industry now.
Shall we explore that then?
Yeah.
So, do you want to touch on some of those things? So, as I was thinking, if the theme's changing, you've got loads of creative types of people who've got loads of experience. Are those skills are going by the wayside? Are they? Is that the way you're seeing it?
Yeah, in a way, it's a shame really, because people who work in TV, they are so skilled. They are so overskilled, because you're just juggling so many different plates all the time. Constant dealing with people, working to tight deadlines, working under quite high pressure environments. Not all great stuff, but to be able to work efficiently and do it, you just have to get the job done, but also remaining, calm, friendly. There's some most friendly people I've ever met working TV. And
are there a load of highly skilled media people then who are still ambitious but are out of work now then because of the cuts perhaps to productions?
Yeah, there's quite a few reasons why people are out of work at the minute, but I found a stat. So research has been conducted by BEC2, which is a broadcasting union, and it found that 68% of respondents are out of work. So 68% of people in that industry out of work is massive, and that's actually come down from when I was applying for jobs out of TV. It was around 80%. It was unreal. There was just no work. There's a few different reasons, really. Budget cuts is definitely one, but as well there was a bit of a post-COVID production boom. So commissioners over-commissioned and they had loads of money to play with because COVID put a stop to can you remember they were airing repeats? Then they had a load of money to spend, but then they've over-commissioned, and then they've had to shelf quite a few different series that haven't seen the light of day yet. They may never see the light of day now.
So series have been recorded,
yeah,
paid for,
yeah.
Have artists been paid?
Well, I assume so. They will have been paid. It's just that I can't even. I've lost my train of thought now.
They won't receive the commissions. Perhaps is that the way it works? So they would generate revenue through the series being aired, probably through advertising or something.
Yeah.
But if they're being shelved,
yeah,
those series are not as valuable as they used to be, are they?
Not necessarily, but it could be just changing habits, and it might not be relevant anymore to air. For example, we've got 24 Hours in A&E. That's not going to be recommissioned anymore. That was really popular, and there's episodes that haven't still been shown, but they've been recorded. People are switching on Netflix now, so they're not likely to go on, your TV guide on a night and see what's on. There's a small demographic of people probably that watch your soaps, but generally people are wanting on-demand streaming platforms now. Or there's a little device in your hand that's distracting a lot of people all night, so you're looking on that. The TV world is changing as we know it, really. So it's trying to find how that's going to look in the future, and what people can do in terms of finding work. I think a lot of people are trying to take a sidestep now and cover the backs, because it's a little bit, it's quite uncertain, really.
Has automation of tech changed anything? So again, when I see programs on TV, you got studios full of producers and people talking in their ears, and there's almost it feels like it's really vibrant when you're in those environments. Is that the same now, or has that changed?
Yeah, I think from when I worked in news, my local news station at Look North, it was very bustling. There was a gallery full of people. You had your reporters out on the satellite trucks in the local area covering news that day. We had a studio full of people. I think we had 4 or 5 studio camera operators, floor manager. But now what's happening is they're making cuts. So as you said, automating of tech, it's allowing sort of it to be done with very minimal crew, really. So it's making people redundant, unfortunately.
Wow.
So for example, there's no satellite trucks anymore. It'll be one reporter and a camera going out. So they have to be trained and multi-skilled to do that. They're doing their own sound. They're doing their own filming, scripts. They're pressing the record button and standing in front of the camera, and then taking those rushes back to be ingested for the 6 o'clock news. But then there might be one person in a gallery because we don't need an auto cue operator anymore, or it's very. It's skeleton crew. People are just out of work because, like as you said, the tech side of it now.
And is that the same for BBC as well as ITV and the other streaming businesses, or are the streaming businesses set up differently, which is they're not legacy anymore, so therefore they would already work on a skeleton crew? Is that right? Is that the way it works?
I think it's different in the sense that if you think of Netflix with dramas, that's what we call scripted. So that is set up a bit differently, and they'll need camera operators and sound and makeup and costume. I would say there's probably more work there, you know, and because streaming is still massive and growing, that is probably more fruitful in terms of work. But in unscripted and news broadcast, it is becoming, because of like the collapse of advertising, you know, there's no money there for commissioners to keep commissioning shows that people aren't watching on TV. And with the news broadcast, I've just explained, we don't need 10 crew members anymore because the tech is too advanced for that now. You know, we've got robotic cameras now and... Yeah.
So if you've got 65%?
68%.
68% who... and so the question is what is that in terms of volume? Is that 1,000 people? Is it 10,000 people? Do we know?
Do you know what? I'm not sure how many people work in the industry. I haven't got to context on that. Well, on that stat, it was of respondents who had replied to filled in the Beck 2 questionnaire.
Yeah.
But although it's a niche industry, you know, there's tens of thousands of people in the industry.
Yeah. So, because the reason why I'm asking is because it must be difficult for folk. They've come, like your journey, through college, through uni, finally get into the studios, let's call it. Sometimes having to take a step back in terms of what roles are available to then try and make the next progress, and then sort of take that line, and then suddenly, because the majority of freelance, let's say in the unscripted element, for example, they're going to have to then try and find the other work, but that work's now not there.
Yeah, there's people that, you know a producer with a family, who a lot of people had work. We were sort of lured into like a false sense of security after COVID, because, as I said, there was a bit of a boom and everyone had work, you know, but then all of a sudden, because of the decline with the change in viewing habits and all of that, people just left without work where they've been on quite big salaries and they've got families to support and mortgages to pay. You know, I know someone who's, you know, very talented producer, lovely guy, worked really hard, and, you know, he just took a postal worker job because what else are you going to do? And there's people like that I admire that, because otherwise you're just going to sit there and be knocking on, you know, closed doors, really. I found that it was a little bit like, you know, I'd send out hundreds of CVs and emails to people and I'd just get nothing back. Unfortunately, that's kind of the world it is a little bit as well. Talent managers are getting so many emails per day about work. They haven't got the time to reply to everyone. So you'd see a job post and it'd be once in a blue moon you'd think, I could do this job, because there'd be far and few between roles come up, and then you'd apply for it. But I had no hope that I'd ever get a response, never mind an interview, even though I'd be overqualified. I was applying for jobs that were, you know, lower than my capabilities, because, you know, people needed work, but you just wouldn't hear back because there'd be so many people going for that one job. And that's the state it's in now. So I had my son in 2022. That's 2 years ago. And it's probably just got worse. Wow. I would say.
Wow. See, those are the things that I haven't really thought about, certainly when I'm watching Granada TV or something. And you think, wow, what a really upbeat place to be. And you described how, absolutely, it's thriving, isn't it? But I'm sort of visualizing now that, in fact, I think I've seen some pictures of this where there's literally one or two people in this entire studio, and as you said, doing everything themselves.
Yeah, that is the reality, really, in news. I mean, in terms of unscripted, the studio shows and that I did, there's a select few shows that do okay at the minute. Stuff like Ninja Warrior and Gladiators have just done quite well. But generally, if you think about all the other shows that are on, like I worked on a cracking series called Draws Off for Channel 4. It was a drawing and art show. Had a great time making it. But, you know, after 2 series, it wasn't commissioned. And this happens, it's normal. But it's hard to get, there are development teams as well in TV. So where are those shows coming from? It has to come from an idea. So they have development teams making, pitching all these ideas and brainstorming and then pitching them to commissioners. But it's becoming harder because it's trying to understand what people are really wanting to see now and what's interesting.
So come on, there's got to be one of the best shows you worked on. Which one was it?
Oh, I don't know. I've mentioned before, I like Question of Sport, but Dragon's Den's up there as well.
And so you would have met a number of entrepreneurs on Dragon's Den then?
Yeah, quite a few.
Who was on it? Who was on it when you were? Who were the main people on it when you were on Dragon's Den?
Do you mean the Dragons?
Yeah.
There was Tuka Sullivan, Sarah Davis, Deborah Meaden, of course.
Yeah.
Peter Jones, Tej Lalvani.
Wow.
He was on the year. It's now changed to Stephen Bartlett, but yeah, that was the lineup.
So what was it like meeting those people?
It was really good, actually. They are all so nice. They're not as scary as what they come across. Although I think over the years they've kind of softened a bit anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really nice people. Deborah's lovely.
Okay, because I suppose the people I've met who are ultra successful, they've got to be really good at one thing and really motivated. But I guess when they're out of that corporate environment, I guess they're personable because they are people.
Yeah, exactly. And, I wasn't dealing with them day in, day out. I was just kind of running around with the rest of the crew. But they would always, acknowledge everybody. And they were really nice people, considering, they are very successful and they're obviously on TV. So you kind of think, oh, and they are quite scary, intimidating people on TV. So it was an interesting one meeting them. And then, because I worked on it for quite a few years, and my last year I sort of produced some little interviews with the Dragons in the dressing rooms for the behind the scenes stuff for socials. Cool. Yeah, so like interviewing all of them really, just some little questions to, give some fun answers. Yeah. So they were all up for that, and that was good.
So you must have some funny stories.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'd say embarrassing. Probably funny for you, but embarrassing for me.
Go on, you gotta say.
Not with the interviews that I did with them, but actually it was my first year working on Dragon's Den, so massive, big BBC name, and I was so proud to have got that job as a runner. So I was sort of looking after the Dragons in their green room and, making sure that was all tidy for them when they come off set, and going to get their lunches from out in the city, so they'd have whatever they want. So like, it could be a Wagamama's for, Peter. Deborah's vegan, so it was always something probably from Pret, like a nice salad. Yeah, so that was really fun. But obviously wanting to make a good impression, be really polite. I felt like I was back in the day when I was a waitress at wedding events. So making sure I did a really good job. Quite nervy around them at that point. And then I can always remember at the end of the day. So, like the entrepreneurs, if they've got products, they'll gift them to the Dragons. So inspecting them. And more often than not, the Dragons will take them products home as they love it. Free products, why not? Yeah. Even if they've invested or not, they'll still take them home and use them. So Peter Jones said to me at the end of the day, here's my car keys, and here's some products. Can you just put these in my back of my car, please? And when you've done, just drop the keys in my dressing room. I'll be eating in there. Yeah. I'm going to have my dinner. So off I went, put them in his flashy car, in his boot, shut the door, make sure I'd locked the car, tottered back, and then walked into his dressing room, didn't knock, because I don't know why I didn't knock, because I just thought he was going to be eating in their green room. Walked in and he was literally stood there in his underpants. And I just went, oh my God, so sorry, and shut the door really quick. And I was so red.
Like? What was his face like?
I can picture it now. Because he's so tall as well. He was stood in his underpants, but he was holding his trousers if he was going to put his leg into his trouser. And I don't think he had time to react. He just kind of looked up. And to be honest, for them, they're probably used to, wardrobe and makeup coming in and out and whatnot. He ain't bothered.
Yeah.
But, for me, as a
mortified.
young girl runner, I was mortified, and I also was really scared of this old school production manager who was like my boss. She was stood in the corridor, and I shut the door really quick. And not only did I feel just mortified, embarrassed, I thought, oh crap, like she's gonna bollock me for this.
That's hilarious.
But she didn't see, thank God. She didn't realise. So I kind of just held on to Peter's keys until he came out of his dressing room and kind of just laughed it off and said, it's fine, don't worry.
Brilliant.
And that was it.
Peter Pants Down then.
Peter Pants Down.
Peter Pants Down.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh.
Did you work with him again?
Yeah, but I don't think he remembered me. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, you probably just went in, sort of legged it straight away.
I was like a deer caught in headlights.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh.
That is funny. And so, see, the thing is, though, is that in those environments, people are going to get changed all the time, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you just never know, do you, what you're walking into?
No, I know. There's probably so many other things I've done that are just, I call dippy, because that's me. But lesson learned from that, always knock.
Right.
Yeah.
So going from Question of Sport, which you loved, Dragon's Den, which you loved, is there any programmers that you try to avoid working on?
Yeah, I think definitely there is one. I was lucky enough to have work at this time coming in, so I could turn a job down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd turn any other job down than this one, but it was Naked Attraction.
Naked Attraction.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you know what? I respect anybody that works on that show, goes on that show actually. That's Manchester made.
So what's Naked Attraction about?
So Naked Attraction is basically a dating show where people go into a studio, stand in sort of glass booths, and then they slowly get revealed naked
right,
to someone who's looking on.
From the bottom up or the
to
top
judge
down?
them, to
From the
see
bottom.
if they want to date them. Yeah, from the bottom up.
Right.
So, yeah, then that reveals if they want to date them. And they get sent off stage by stage. So you can imagine the first part could be their feet and them have to send someone off. No, I'm not into their feet. But then once it gets higher and higher, it gets a little bit more awkward, doesn't it?
Right.
But what you don't realise is those people have to go through an interview casting process off screen. So that is just a whole nother world, you know. So I would have been casting on that show and I didn't really fancy sitting in an interview room on, you know, asking someone to get naked in front of me to judge whether I thought they'd be good enough to come on the show.
Right.
Let's be honest, I think anyone who's going to have the balls, excuse my pun, to interview for that show probably will get cast on it because it's far and few between that want to go on that show, let me tell you.
So people apply for this, do they?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't, maybe they do. I think a lot of it is people somehow finding, you know, the team finding these people to come on the show.
Okay.
I know they do some street casting in Manchester asking if they want to come on and stuff. Yeah.
So you just didn't fancy it?
No, I don't think so. I like talking to people and finding out about their personality. Although I feel like that probably would have strangely an element to the casting process. Although, let's face it, you're just looking at someone naked, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what they tried to do is they always try to get different body shapes, sizes, promoting that, you know, diversity. But they always go for the skinny, beautiful, you know, or muscly guy. So
it's not indicative of the reality.
No.
Doesn't make good TV though, does it?
But weirdly it does, because it's been recommissioned so much. I don't even know, I'm not sure if it's still airing now. Probably is.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were so many recommissions of that show, and I just was like, how is this still going? How are they finding these people?
Yeah.
You know, because who really wants to do that and go on that show? There can't be a lot of people. So I know the casting was really hard on that. It wasn't the ethical side of it and the fact that having to, interview naked people. Actually, I feel like it'd be hell on earth because it's like, where are you finding these people to come on?
Yeah.
It'd be a tough job.
Yeah.
And I know people that worked on it that really worked hard, and I had a tough time on there. Yeah. So.
You've got to have an ego in your pocket if you get rejected.
Yeah. Just, I don't know what the incentive is to go on,
I used to watch, I've forgotten what it was called, and it was where you would go on with a friend and you would have a tattoo of any design that they wanted. You wouldn't see it. Some of these things were gigantically massive. Some were small. Most of them were done in anger, I think. But folk do it. Is it to be on TV, do you think? Is that why they did it? Or
you tell me, what tattoo have you got then? From the show?
What, from the show? Yeah, I can't show you ever. No, but my mind boggled because people are walking about with those tattoos today.
Yeah, no, it's mad, isn't it? But it makes great I think the best TV sometimes, not for me, but for actually will get views and people wanting to watch it because they're intrigued.
Yeah.
Are shows where someone will have pitched that show and they'll have gone, that can't be made, it's impossible. It's like they are the best shows because we'll make the impossible happen, and they are the most interesting, intriguing shows.
Yeah.
No matter if you think it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So my brain's now gone to thinking, here you are, you're working at Prism Studios, you offer services to everybody. We've discussed the skills you have. And then what happens if somebody knocks on the door and said, I quite fancy making a small domestic version of this? Would you do it?
No, I don't know. I'd have to ask Paul. It's not my decision.
Depends how much they're paying.
Yeah, no, it
Each to their own, though, isn't it? Fair play to everybody who goes onto those shows. Honestly, like you say, you've got to have like a strong will to be able to go on there and to stand in front of people anyway. So fair play, I say, with those things. Each program has its time, doesn't it? I suppose, which is what you were saying about the programs which have ended up being canned, which were made after COVID, probably relevant at the time, and they've now been canned, maybe not see the light of day again because they're not relevant anymore.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. So going back into this then, so we know that there's a workforce that isn't being tapped anymore. What would your advice be to folk who have been in the industry, who have found themselves at the crossroads like you were? And I think there's probably someone wants to talk to you about that anyway. What would your advice to them be today? Would it be to try and find a small SME, a bit like yourself, to work with, to keep on trying within the TV industry? Or do you think they should apply elsewhere, do you think?
I think just broaden the horizons, really. You can apply your skills to more or less anything. And just because you've been in TV doesn't mean that you won't enjoy another sector. I never thought I'd enjoy anything as much, but I love this way more. I think that, I think it'd be good, to have a look at your CV, try and get some advice that's out there online, that you can sort of make a more generic CV, because a lot of people who have been in TV, it's just full of TV credits and it might not be so relevant. There are help, there is help online that you can get for that. Because you've got so many different skills and you can definitely apply them elsewhere. In terms of looking sort of for smaller SMEs, definitely, I dropped on my feet here as a video production company. There are video production companies nationwide that will be looking for staff. And TV it's a great sidestep to have done because it's still really creative. So it seemed to me like the more obvious sidestep rather than going completely something, out of the blue, different and more corporate. But there are also other sectors such as marketing, which I think is quite a good area for TV staff to venture into. So, marketing's really creative and there's a lot of companies looking to train people up in marketing, and also there's the charity sector. They have creative teams within their, their, what word is?
An industry?
Yeah, so there's charity sector, I guess, as well, that have creative teams.
Yep.
So there's a wealth of things out there you can find. I think LinkedIn was quite good as well, I found, for jobs. There's things that will pop up that you might not have considered, but you can sort of filter it by your skill set. And following Facebook groups, there's a lot out there for support for people in TV that post amazing jobs, that might be remote as well. You can work all over the UK. I found it tricky living in Warrington. A lot of jobs would come up and they'd be south, and I wouldn't be able to travel because I had my little boy. I even looked at NHS and jobs and going into admin because I thought that would suit me with, more clerical, although it's not creative. I would have been willing to do that. But I've got a child, so I felt like I was a bit more limited and a bit more open to what I would take.
Yeah. So after seeing Peter with his pants down and you refusing to work on some fishy programs, obviously COVID happened. You then had your child, but have you made an active decision not to go back into the sort of media workplace then in that sense? You are still in the media process, but you're in private enterprise now.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, as I said, I was keeping my options open when I had Elliot. I found that after 9 months, my maternity ended, and being a freelance, I'd always gone from job to job. Since the age of 16, I've been really responsible and independent, and I really had that drive to work still. And so I would have taken sort of anything really, but deep down I knew that I wanted to stay in something creative. So I was actively looking for some kind of production company, and all I did was I literally Googled video production companies in Warrington, and there's just, there's not many. And one of them that stood out to me straight away was here. It was Prism Studios. I thought the website looked great. What the stuff that they're doing, the making, the variety of products that they're doing with clients across the corporate sector. It could be events, we've worked with TEDx Talks.
Wow.
One of my first jobs that I did, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but it's so varied. We meet different people all the time. As I've said, we've worked with yourself.
Yeah. We've
shot in a studio with products and made them look like M&S style video shoots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did that Google search, sent off my CV to the hello@Prism Studios, email. And at that time, I just felt like, as I said, I wasn't getting any replies to any CVs I was sending out. In fact, I'd had quite a few knockbacks from some admin jobs that just said, you're just unfortunately not suitable. There's no reason. They just thought, you've just not got that experience in our area. So I wasn't hopeful at all. So when Paul emailed me back and said, it sounds like you've got such an interesting background. I'd love to meet up for a coffee and a chat. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it kind of went on from there, really. And that chat just led on to, me and Paul, our values are quite the same. He's the same age as me. He's got 2 young children. His little boy, similar age. It just felt like fate, honestly. And he was really, for him as a small business owner, if you can imagine, he didn't plan on hiring anyone. So I didn't know if it would work, like if he would even have the capacity to take me on. But he has made it work, and I'm so grateful for that. He's and it brought me on, and I feel, fully part of the team. And even though I'm part-time here, I look forward to coming in every Wednesday. I start, so I miss the beginning of the week. But yeah, in time, hopefully, it'll become more of a permanent role.
Yeah.
But for now, it's great having that balance, and I wouldn't have got that if I was still working in TV. I think you just need to just be proactive and look for something else, and not try and pigeonhole yourself into only that line of work and think that you can't apply your skills elsewhere. There's a bit of proving to do, but also try and be enthusiastic. Ask people to meet face to face. If you've just dropped your CV in, just say, admittedly, I know that my background is this. However, I'm willing to learn. I can apply my skills. I've got transferable skills. Please, can we meet for a coffee? They might give you a chance, Just it takes that one person to do that, and just keep the hope that you will get work, 'cause you will.
Yeah.
Just see it as you've done it all this time as a freelance, going from job to job, knocking on those doors, contacting the talent managers. It's just the same, but just see it as an exciting new chapter,
Yeah, you seem very happy working here.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously the experience you've got is going to make Prism more successful, isn't it? Especially if you're doing, I think you said you do TEDx, you do corporate events, corporate videos, you do private enterprise, do commercial type things for products.
Yeah.
So it is varied. And of course you're still able to meet a whole variety of people as well, aren't you, doing that?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And another thing that we're sort of venturing into now and trying to move with the times is, companies all over are using social media now as a form of promotion. So whereas people might have had a promotional video for the website, then now we're making short videos short form videos for Instagram, let's say. People are using those platforms now. So we're trying to really sort of venture into the realms of TikTok, and we can create content for that. I mean, we filmed in a cafe that's just local. So we filmed in Casa Coffee, which is local coffee shop. They did a great thing, which is they got us in to film and shoot some really high quality videos of coffees and their food, and they've used that for their social media. So don't get me wrong, like, people can use their phones to film bits like that and get it out there. But what we do is so much more, it's bigger and it's more high quality. They can use that footage for the website. You get a lot more for your money than just using your phone. And the food and the drink that they're serving is delicious. So we got to taste that after. So that was an extra perk. But, it's such a varied job meeting all these different people, and I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
And it never stops, So, and another thing now is podcasts.
Well, of course.
So that's just growing and growing, isn't it? The podcasts. Everybody's listening to them. So,
and
getting
so
to do this is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's as I say, I'm really pleased. Just happenstance that we met.
Yeah.
And my skateboard brand is local as well. We promote that for yourselves, and it's so that power of networking locally is so important. And I think we sort of miss that a little bit, don't we? After you asked me about the transition from corporate into owning a small business, well, it's hard. But if you don't meet people and you don't try and do other things, you will never get anywhere. And so tapping into that community now more than ever, I think is really important. All these businesses, all these talented people everywhere, being able to pull that together into a community. Perhaps we could trade off with each other, I don't know. But it's got to be positive. I think it's people like you who's made that genuine decision to come into something like this rather than keep chipping away at something which perhaps isn't there anymore is great for you. And you've got a great work-life balance now as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, those values are really important, aren't they?
Oh God, yeah, definitely. I mean, as a first-time mum, I didn't know what it was going to be like. It hits you hard, but then also having that dilemma of where is my career going? It's tough. Obviously, I've got no family close by, being from Yorkshire. My partner's family all live in Northumberland, so having that no support close by as well.
Yeah,
it was tough, but just being resilient and just making that decision instead of, like you said, trying to carry on with something that deep down it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
It's a shame though, being a woman and working in TV, working my way up all those years and having a child, and then it just feeling like it can't work.
Do you think
something needs to
having
change?
A child, the after effects of having a child, do you think that affected your career then?
Yeah, massively. I was nervous about having children because of my career. It does feel a bit like it needs to be one or the other. And while talent managers and people that I've worked with were very sort of open to taking me on and hiring me again, realistically, it wouldn't work because of the hours they needed me to work and the short deadlines they had to meet and what I could offer. I couldn't just work part-time in casting because they have such short deadlines. You'd have to it wouldn't work. There's a couple of groups on Facebook, one where there's a job sharing, and I posted on there, does anyone want a job share in casting? It's just like going into a black hole because you'd think there'd be more out there, but I think women have already left TV before they change line of work.
So do you think there's a hesitancy to have a family if you're in TV for those reasons, do you think?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's I wouldn't say there's a lot of successful, high up women with families, or if there are, it's because they've had staff contracts years ago.
Okay.
And been kept through that time, but now it's changed in sort of my line of work. You're a freelance, so it's hard. I would say that there is a hesitance for that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And see where the corporate world is slightly different, although I'm not sure why the behaviour would be different, is that you're valued as a woman in the organisation. You know that you may or may not have children. If you do, you're supported through that. And there's an obligation in order for that person to be able to have work again afterwards. Might not be the same role if the business has moved on, but there is an obligation there in order to be able to do that. Do you think that's why I know we talked about the budgets and stuff around freelancing, but do you think that's one of the plays, is that if you're a freelance, there's no obligation to have to take you back into the environment?
Yeah, well, there isn't really. And I think we said at the beginning, there's so many other people in the industry. If you're not at the forefront of people's minds that are hiring, you're just going to sort of drop off the face of the earth. And then coming back from maternity after 9 months, it wasn't like that for me as such, because I built up quite a strong network of friends within my work. But yeah, I think they aren't obligated to hire you, so they're just going to choose someone who's more flexible.
Yeah.
Why would they not? What's the incentive for them to take you on, that you might have to go and pick your son up at 4:00 and have to do a commute back from Manchester? Or, I wouldn't be able to work a certain day because I've not got childcare for that. I think it's not actually viable in that line of work. I can understand why I wouldn't be able to do my job properly if I, had to do that. So I wouldn't be comfortable either. But then where does that leave women in TV? Because all my friends now are getting to the age where they're wanting, kids, and they've been texting me saying, what advice have you got? Like, you've done so well to leave, and you've, what did you do? I'm getting to that point, and it's sad really, because they've built that career up. But unfortunately, that's how it is.
Wow. Well, there's a subject there which I'm sure will resonate with a lot of people who are probably listening. And so I think the advice, I've heard the advice you can give them is not to give in.
No.
And there are options out there, and family is important.
Yeah, it is. It shouldn't stop you from having a family if you really want that and you desire that. At the end of the day, that is important. And I would say maybe start looking early, rather than just waiting and just thinking it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Try and put the feelers out a bit earlier and see what's out there. You've got to do what's best for you at the end of the day. And I wouldn't change it for the world having Elliot. Although my career did kind of stop in that industry, it's gone on in a different aspect, and it will for anyone else who's doing the same. Especially when you've got a family, you've got more drive than ever to succeed, really. Although it's hard, I wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure I always worked, so I've always had that drive to be like that, and I want to have Elliot to be proud of me, and yeah,
and I'm sure that he is. You've provided some tremendous insights. I had no idea this happened. This is perfect for what a podcast can do. I had no idea that this was happening in the local area. I had no idea about the pressures people are under, and so really welcome the insights into that. Jess, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you. You are a local hero. Prism is great. You're great. Thank you so much for doing the interview, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Mark.